Hey everybody, welcome to the 84th edition of Drive-Thru Review. Today I'm going to talk about Tournay. This is a game that is currently being sold by Pro Games and soon to be picked up by Z-Man, I believe. If not, they should, because it is a good game. This is by the makers of Tournay, which is a game I don't care for, but this game is awesome. I played this a couple times, 2 and 3 player, have not played it 4 player. But I would say I think I like it better as a 2-player game. The 3-player game was still fun. 2-player game, there's just a little bit, there's less to think about and more to focus on the other player, and so you can base your decisions a little bit easier, that way. And it's really good back and forth that way. It's a card game, and this is kind of, I said this in another review about another game, but this is sort of a throwback to me. It kind of reminds me of some of the earlier Euro card games. With a lot of new mechanics. There's a worker placement, and you can buy workers, and you build sort of a tableau, sort of a little region or realm of cards. There's a lot of icons, a lot of effects. The icons are really straightforward though. You'll get it halfway through your first play. I would say it's going to take a play or two to kind of wrap your head around what strategies you want to take, because there are a lot of cards. And the game even comes with advanced cards, which I haven't played with. I only played the basic cards. But it also gives you 2 modes of play. Sort of a basic play, which is sort of a quicker game, and then a more advanced play, which is a longer, slightly more strategic game. But let me just jump into how it works and come back and tell you a little bit more about what I think. Okay, here's a setup for a 2-player game. You can see I've got 2 mats here, 1 for each player. And then they've each got a little token here, which you're not going to actually use until you score points at the end of the game. The white player here has a start player marker, and he keeps that for the rest of the game, just to sort of make sure everybody gets an equal number of turns. Then you get 2 of these workers in the different colors. So there's red, yellow, and white, and they'll be used to interact with different cards of the same color. Everybody starts with 2 of each on their little mat here. You've got sort of 3 rows of 3 sets of cards here. Level 1, 2, and 3 in yellow, white, and red. And so your level 1s are your basic cards that give you basic actions and things like that. Level 2 is sort of a souped up version of level 1. And then your level 3 cards at the top are all prestige buildings, sort of your end game scoring type of cards. And we've got 3 workers of each color that can be purchased and added to your supply of workers to do more stuff on your turn. You've got a stack of event cards up here, and then 3 events will show up. If you're familiar with Tournay, you've got events that'll happen and either do negative things for you and maybe even some positive things there. Everybody starts with 6 coins. You got to supply coins, and then these little cards here are worth 10 coins. Then you've got these tokens here, which can basically mean damage. If you build a building, and I'll show you that in a second, you put this on there. If it takes damage, you can't use it. And then if you buy somebody else's worker to use, then you'll put this worker on your building, basically to signify that it's been used, but not by one of your workers. As I said before, there's some advanced cards, and these are noted by these sort of dual fleur-de-lis kind of things. So you can pull these out and then set them aside. And there is actually a misprint on this version, which I think will be fixed in the Z-Man version. There's some level 1 card that's the same as the level 2 advanced card. It's a slight minor difference. I don't remember what it was, but go look it up, and then you can see that, oh, this level 2 is supposed to do this slightly different. So it's unfortunate, but it's not a huge deal. And then each player is going to get one of these nice cards sort of to summarize all of the icons. And they come in different languages, but there's enough for 4 players in English to have these icons. And you can see there's quite involved. It's not actually too bad. It's just, there's some subtle differences between like this one and this one. But it's not really too bad. It's not Race for the Galaxy-esque at all. Although I will say that I do get a little bit sick of teaching people to translate icons. Sometimes I wish they just use text and then translate it. I understand that's some more cost for development, but anyway, this is a little gripe. And then I mentioned the level 3 prestige cards there. It's actually broken down and names every single card in there, and there's like 2 of each of these in there, and gives you the exact way that they work. So that's also nice. And you can sort of look at these, before your first play and try to get, okay, maybe I'll try to do this strategy, but whatever. Just play your first game, and then by the second game, you'll have an idea of, okay, I understand kind of the flow and how this works. So on your turn, you're going to basically do 2 things. The first thing is optional, and that you can build a building from your hand of cards. You're not going to start with any cards. and you've got a hand limit of 4 cards. But if you want to, you can build a card in your tableau, and then you can take one of 5 possible actions, or 6 possible actions if you're playing the advanced game. I'm just going to discuss the basic game here. The difference between basic and advanced, it's just a couple minor rules, a couple little minor nuances, nothing really to worry about, but I would probably recommend playing a few basic games and then go into the advanced game. So let me go over the actions first, what's possible on your turn, and then I'll talk about how you're going to build up your tableau. So the first thing you can do is draw a card. And simply, to draw a card, you'll take a worker of the color of card that you want, move it off. If you move off 1 yellow worker, you can draw a level 1 card. If you move off 2 yellow workers, you can draw a level 2 card. If you had 3, you can move 3 off and draw that. But let's say I only had 2. I could do 2 like this. If I really wanted to draw a level 2 card, I can pay 2 coin per worker that I want to use for my opponent. So in this case, I'd pay him 2 coin, and then I could move off a yellow worker of his. So he can't use it for now. And I've used 3 yellow workers, so I could draw from the level 3 stack. So you can always pay 2 coin to an opponent to use one of their workers. And you can do that as many times as you want, and use that for all of these actions that I'm going to explain. So let me explain how to draw a card. Let's say I did a level 1. So what you do when you draw a card is you draw the 2 cards off the top, and then you look at them and you keep one and keep it in your hand, and then put the other one back face up. So now if somebody were to draw a level 1 yellow, they could either take the face up card and just take it right away, or bury it and then draw 2 face downs, look at them, keep it 1, and then put it face up. So it's a little bit of a card drafting mechanism. It's pretty interesting. So the second possible action that you can do is to activate a building. And again, I will talk about how to build everything at the end of all these actions. But what you do when you activate a building is you take a worker of the same color and you place it on the building, and then you get this. So this action basically means if I activate this, I pay 3 gold and I can acquire another yellow worker. Another example of a building might be this one. I place this and I get 5 coin. A lot of different effects. I'm not going to go into all of them. The thing to keep in mind is there are 2 types of cards. So you got buildings here, and you can see there's a little building icon there, and usually a picture of a building. And then you've got character cards. You don't want to actually place on these. So these we're going to trigger from different effects. So basically when you build these, they're going to be in a row or a column, and then based on what action you might take, you're going to trigger this effect. So just keep that in mind. There's 2 different cards. Now the next thing you can do is combat one of these event cards and try to acquire it into your hand. Now you can only do that if there's a coin on the event card. And the way that that's going to happen is if any time that somebody draws a card out of these piles, if they pull one of these town crier cards, then it's going to trigger sort of an event phase. And there's 1 town crier in each of these piles. So let's say I drew cards, I pulled this one up, now we're going to trigger all these events. So let me show you what happens there. So when a town crier card is drawn, then you're going to take 1 coin and put it on each empty spot on one of these event cards. And then you're going to trigger each event for each coin that is on there. So if I had done it again, let's say a second time, I'm going to put a coin on each of these, and then each of these events now will trigger twice because there's 2 coins on each of them. So real quickly, just the example of what these events do. This one, for example, each player will have to lose 1 coin. In this case, they'll have to lose 2 because there's 2 coins, and this event will trigger twice. Now this event is actually a good event. So whoever has the most yellow workers and yellow buildings and characters in their tableau will get 2 coins. And this will actually happen twice, so they'll get 4 coins. This last event will force any players that have white workers on their little mats to remove 1. So in the case of this event, it actually happens twice. So this player here will have to remove both white workers. Now getting to how you will combat these events, and that's an action that you can take on your turn. And the way that you do that is you can see there's a cost up here on the top. So sometimes it'll have a colored worker and a coin, or sometimes it'll be 2 colored workers like that. So what you do to combat the event is you'll have to use a colored worker like this. You have to remove 1 off your mat. So in this case you have to remove a yellow, and then you're going to have to pay 1 coin plus 1 coin for each coin that's on there. So in this case I'd have to use 1 yellow worker and pay 3 coins. And then all the coins off this event will get discarded, and I can take this event in my hand. Now in this case with the 2 workers, I'd have to pay 2 workers and then 1 coin for each of these. So 2 workers and 2 coins in that case, and then I would take this one in my hand. And what the events are used for in your hand is anytime one of these events triggers, if the town crier comes up and then you don't want one of these events to happen to you, like you really don't want to lose your white workers, then you can play this in front of you, just off to the side, sort of next to your tableau, and it will totally negate that entire card. So that event won't happen to you at all. And plus, this will be worth 1 point at the end of the game. So it's really nice to have for that case too. The next thing you can do is spend your workers just to get money. And what you can do is you can take all workers of the same color and you get 2 money per worker. So if I took all these reds and moved them off, I'd get 4 coins. Now the last thing you can do is gather your workers. So as your workers get used or maybe paid for by your opponent, you're not going to have anything to do really. So you can take 1 turn as an action and gather all your workers. And then the next time you've got something to do. So that's all pretty basic. So let's look at what your tableau is going to look like and give you a little bit more idea of sort of the interactions and things that may happen. So here we've got the orange player. He's got his mat with his workers and his money, and he has right now an imaginary 3x3 grid. Now to start the game you won't have any cards here, but during the game you'll be placing cards basically in any one of these slots. But the first card that you play can really be anywhere in that grid. You don't have to, this isn't the center when you first place it. It could be the upper left. But as you add cards to the grid, then things will just sort of start to form, and then once you get your 3x3 grid, then you'll have your grid. Now to pay for a building, you're going to pay this cost here. And usually it's like a coin or some other type of thing. You may have to discard a worker back to the supply, and then they're going to be worth a certain amount of points at the end of the game. Like that one's worth 0, this one's worth 1. Now you can build on top of other buildings. So if I built a yellow on top of a yellow, then this yellow will stay, and I'll still get the point for it at the end of the game. However, if you build on a building of a different color, you're going to discard this. It's going to go back into the bottom of the piles for whatever pile it's in, and then you've lost that card. Now let's take a little bit of a look at the character cards here. Now, like I said before, you can't place workers on the character cards. You can only place them on buildings and activate them. But the character cards are sort of like these constant effects that are always going to happen and looking for their trigger to happen. So what this guy means is anytime I place a worker on any building in either his column or his row, then you're going to get this effect. And that's what the gray means. It basically means any color. So if this had a yellow worker on a yellow building, it would have to only work for any yellow workers in yellow buildings. So in this case, let's say I place him here, and simply what this means is I'm going to get a coin for each empty space in my tableau here. So if I didn't have these, and then I don't have the ones on the bottom here, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coins from that, and it will trigger this, so I get an additional coin bonus because I've triggered that character. And that's how the characters work. There's a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to go into all of them. Now let's say you wanted to activate this white building, but you've used all the white workers that you have, and there's no longer any on your mat. Now you could pay 2 coins to an opponent that had an available white worker. He'll have to take his white worker off the mat, and then I put this little gray token there. Just to show that the building's been used, nobody can use it. Finally, we've got these damage tokens here, and so let's say you had an event that did a damage to a yellow building, you'd place it there like so, and nobody can use the damaged building. But when you go to take the action to collect all your workers and put them back on your mat, all the workers will go back on your mat, anything that's on your building will go on your mat. These will go back to the supply, and then these damage markers will also come off your building, so you can use them from now on, now that you've done a sort of a repair collection step. Finally, I just want to look at some of these prestige buildings here, and these are the level 3 white ones I'm using in this example, just to give you an example of what some of them might do. So you can see this one's 5 coin, a little bit more expensive to buy, and it has a variable victory point. And so these, if they're buried under other cards in your tableau, they're not going to score anything. Only your visible prestige buildings will score. And the weird thing, or the cool thing I should say, is that everybody's prestige buildings for the most part are going to score for you and then for everybody else as well. So if we look at this one, for each set of all 3 workers, you are going to get 3 points for each set, but everybody else is going to get 1 point for each of their sets. Another example, for each white building and white character you have, you get 2 points, everybody else gets 1. This one actually costs a white worker, you have to return it back to the supply. This one, same kind of deal, for every white worker, it's 2 and 1. And this is a sort of a unique one. It costs 20 coins to build, but you get 8 points, everybody else gets 0. So you're going to play the game until one of 2 endgame conditions happens. And so the first endgame condition is if one player has all 9 buildings filled in their tableau, and 2 prestige buildings. And there's been one more town crier card drawn than there are players. So in a 2-player game, you draw 3 town criers. Somebody's got 9 buildings plus 2 prestige buildings. That's going to be the last round. Now you do that check every time it's the start player's turn. So if it becomes the start player's turn, that's the truth, then we will end the game. We'll have one last building placement. So everybody will take a card, place it face down, reveal it simultaneously, and then pay the cost to build it, and then that's it. Then we're going to score. The other way that the game will end is if 2 players have 9 buildings plus 2 prestige buildings. It doesn't matter how many town criers have been drawn. Then we're going to do that same check. When you score, you dig through your piles, find all the victory points on your normal buildings and characters, total up all the prestige buildings. Then we're going to take this little thing here, flip it over, and then we're going to put their discs on there, and then we're going to count up the points, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Okay, so first, a couple of negative things. One is the misprint on the card that I have. I explained that. That's not a huge deal. The rulebook has some slight ambiguities. It's not perfect. So there's a couple things, just minor interactions with the cards, sort of corner cases, kind of, that are slightly unclear, but it makes sense. Everything flows really good. The game is good. The game is sound. The rule set is good. It's just the rule book itself. Probably something to do with the translation, I think. So maybe when Z-Man comes out with it, hopefully they tweak the translation just a little bit. But it's not bad at all. Not horrendous. I just wanted to point that out to you. If you're thinking about getting the Pearl games and you're in the U.S., I would say get it anyway. So it's not that big a deal. But if you want to wait for the Z-Man copy, then hopefully they'll do a little bit of work with it. I like the game quite a bit. There is a lot of cool effects and things with the cards. I like the whole card drafting where you draw and you put one down, because there might be one that you really want to keep that's kind of going with your strategy, but there's also a nice one that you go, well, Billy over there, he's going to want that one. So what do? Do you keep the one he wants that might be kind of good for you and then hope that nobody buys that one for your next turn? That's really cool. I really like that. The card effects themselves, there's a lot of good interaction. There's cards that will let you use somebody else's building. And then there's like a level 2 version of that will let you use somebody's occupied building. So you've got to keep aware of what everybody's building. There's another card that will let you trigger events. So I think it's a red card. You play the red card, you put your worker on it, and you trigger the events for everybody else. So they get hammered. And so you can't do it every turn. So you're not like going to constantly be hammering them. And I don't think you'd win if you did that anyway, because you'd spend all your time hammering the other player. Or you can get the building and let you use somebody else's building, and you use their building that's going to hurt the event. So if you put that out there, you're also leaving it there for somebody else to use. So it's highly interactive, and I really, really enjoy it. It's a different take on a card game. It's got the whole worker buying thing. I really like that. It's not too bad. I mean, you can do damage with it. So, but it's not horrendously bad. It's something you have to keep in mind. You've got to sort of figure out when to pour those workers back. It kind of reminds me of Ora Labora in that way. It's got that thing is like really the same. I don't know if they were sitting in having coffee, but one day and came up with this. But yeah, that part is almost exactly like Ora Labora. Yeah, I mean, the events give you a great way to interact with people. And you can get the event cards and play them sort of as a counterspell, as a block. And there's a lot of nice synergies, obviously. So if you're going white, there's a lot of nice synergies in white. But that doesn't mean you should only go one color either, because then you're going to hamstring yourself. So as you build that tableau and get some characters out and get those sort of bonus effects as you're playing on the cards, it's just really, really cool. And like I said, I really like it as a 2-player game, because it's just, I don't know if the right thing is to say it gets chaotic with more than 2. Maybe that is the right thing to say, but it's just a lot more to take in and keep in mind. So it's probably more of an advanced game with 3 and 4 players to really sort of watch and kind of stay nimble. And you will get a little bit hosed. Maybe it's your turn, and then 2-player, 3-player, 4-player take all the good cards, and everything's kind of reset. So maybe it is fair to say that it gets chaotic a little bit. But yeah, 2 players, great. 2 players, awesome. This is a great, great game. Kind of under the radar, I think. So I hope some more people check it out. I quite like this game. You know, it's just really, really fun. There's just constantly choices every turn. Your turns are very quick. You know, you either build a card if you want and then take your action. That's it. It takes you 10 seconds, unless you got to think a little bit, and that's okay. I mean, it's not like it's laborious to take the action or fiddly at all. Very, very smooth. You know, I can't say enough about it. The art is really cool. That was one thing I liked about Tournay. The art, I love this art. I mean, this is, it's got a similar look to Tournay. You know, maybe they'll come out with a third one that looks the same, but it's cool. It's got a really unique quality. I really like that, where they let an artist kind of get in there and be a little bit expressive with, you know, what they're doing. It's not kind of the same old goblins or fantasy or medieval France. I mean, it is medieval France, but it has a really unique feel. So it's nice. And the graphic design of the cards, you know, instead of cluttering up the backs of those cards with stuff, they leave the solid colors. And so everything is really quick to take in. So even the icons themselves, there's a lot of them, but they're fairly good size and descriptive, and they're good icons. So everything is really easy to kind of pick up. Okay, this is going to do this, and this, and so your turn should go pretty quickly. So I think that's really well done. I know I mentioned that I was sick of the icons, but I think that's just kind of a burnout thing to say. But yeah, I just get sick of icons. But I think they work really well. So yeah, I would say I would recommend this game, definitely, for sure. So hopefully it comes out soon. So yeah. So anyway, thanks.